Jasadanandana Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajaka Sodara Sadashi Shrimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Since today is the anniversary of the incorporation of ISKCON, I'm going to be speaking on that rather than the verse. And today it's kind of like a birthday. It's kind of like the 58th, is it? Something like that, birthday. Because ISKCON was founded in 1966 and in July, but this is the date on the Vedic calendar. So I'm going to read some of the initial things, and I have some things to read. But I want to say a few things first, that unbeknownst to a lot of people, Prabhupada was seriously considering, because the movement hadn't gotten started yet, he was seriously considering going back to India without doing anything. And he went so far as to go down to the end of, south of Manhattan, where the ships go, and was inquiring about which ships are going back to India. But he decided not to do it, and he would wait a while. But he was still thinking that he might do it. Anyway, he was advised when he was about to go to New York that it would be very cold and very unpleasant for him. That was the message that Sumatra Morarji gave him when he was about to go on one of her ships, the Jaladuta. Even though she had arranged for free passage, she advised him that it was not a good place to go because it would be very cold and very difficult for him to start anything in America. Some of you have seen, there's a person who saw the sign in the window on 26 Second Avenue which said International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And this person was very amazed that here in the at that time it was kind of not a slum, but going into this sort of slum area of Lower Manhattan, there was a sign in the window that said International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And so this academic person was a little amazed that Prabhupada could have called his little storefront settlement the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That was in the window for everyone to see. So Prabhupada had a certain vision of what would happen. And when ISKCON was first about to be incorporated, I found a paper that I was asked to sign and return to him. It was about the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and I'll read some of that later. But there were 8 different things that Prabhupada had said would be the basis of Krishna consciousness. And I kind of didn't know what to think of it, but I don't remember exactly what I thought, but I just thought, well, I'll sign it because maybe the so-called old man is having delusions of grandeur. I don't know what I thought. But he was very much older than I was. I was about 23 or 24 years old, and Prabhupada was in his 70s. So I thought, well, I'll sign it anyway, even if it's not going to amount to anything. So there was a vision. And sometimes people it has become a bit controversial that in this document that I will read that there are 8 fundamental purposes of ISKCON. And some people said that there's actually more than 8, and maybe more were added and later on. But the evidence is not there, at least not in Satsarupa Maharaj's book, that there were more than 8. Some say there were 20, 25, or 30, and maybe some were added, and maybe some weren't added. But that's all controversial. Then Srila Prabhupada seemed to be envisioning something that was extraordinary, international, and even though it wasn't happening at the time, he had that vision. And when the poet Allen Ginsberg joined the Hare Krishna movement, not as an official devotee, not an initiated devotee, but because he was kind of famous in the sort of underground world of the hippies, it was sort of a claim to fame. And the New York Times reported on it, that Allen Ginsberg was there and that people were chanting in the park. And they had a photograph and a little explanation of how people were chanting in Tompkins Square Park. And it was actually quite an interesting thing. And the fact that Allen Ginsberg had joined made it even more interesting, because he was kind of well known at that time, and he was considered an icon of the alternative world. So now I'm going to read an excerpt from something that was written by Prabhupada, something that was said by Prabhupada on the 15th of February, 1971. This is quite a while after things had grown a lot. And Prabhupada said this. I'm going to be reading a transcription of what he was saying at that time, 1971. This was recorded in Gorakhpur in UP, India. Anyway, this is what Prabhupada said. Anyway, they passed. With all he talked about when he first came to the United States, and he was talking about the immigration people. Anyway, they passed, and with these books I reached America. I was maintaining myself by selling these books for 1 year. There was no friend, and I was living in an apartment with great difficulty. Still, the whole, I mean to say, stock of my typewriter, my tape recorder, everything was stolen. In this way, I became very much depressed, and I was going to the shipping company. When the next ship is going to India, quote unquote. So they gave me such and such a date. Then I thought, open quote, let me wait for some more time. Then I shall return back, close quote. I had return ticket, of course. There was no difficulty. In this way, 1966, and this is a lecture, and it was, anyone could go, so it was public. In this way, 1966, by selling these books, I had only $200, and I dared to take one apartment, the storefront, that was 26 Second Avenue. Storefront, $125 per month. I think it was actually $100. It was, anyway. An apartment, $75. So I had only $200, so I advanced him $200. I did not know how to pay next month's rent. So I started in 1966, lecturing in a storefront and living in that apartment in 26 Second Avenue. Then gradually, these boys, American boys and girls, began to come. And then I started my kirtan in Tompkinson Square. More and more, these younger Americans, they came to me, and things were organized. Then I registered this Krishna Consciousness Society under Religious Act of New York. In 1966, and gradually people took interest. Open quote, people, close quote, means the younger generation. All the boys and girls, they were from 16, not all 16, but there were 16, Krishnadas, and at that time, 16 years old, and between 20 to 30. Only I think Keith, now Kirtanandana Maharaj, was at that time 29. Hayagriva was, I think, 26. So in this way, this Hayagriva, I met him on the street after renting the apartment and storefront when I was returning. This Hayagriva, Professor Howard Wheeler, he was philosophically minded. So he asked me, open quote, Swamiji, are you coming from India? Close quote. So I told, open quote, yes, I am coming from India, close quote. So, are you interested in Indian philosophy? End quote. Yes, sir. So why don't you come? I have taken one storefront and apartment. So I came back. I showed him. Open quote, here's my storefront and apartment. You come in the evening, close quote. So the Hayagriva and Kirtanandana, Keith, and some other boys, I think, Satsarupa, devotee, Ravinda Sarup, Prabhupada. Ravindra, yes, he was not the Ravinda Sarup, the current Ravinda Sarup, but the original Ravinda Sarup was named Robert Lefkowitz. He was a different person, and he didn't stay active in the movement. Then Prabhupada continues, in this way 5 or 6 students used to come, Mukunda. Gradually it developed. Then we started next branch in San Francisco, next branch in Montreal, next branch in Buffalo, Boston. In this way, now we have got 45 branches. So practically we began from 1968. 66 I started, and 67 I became very much sick. So I came back to India, and again I went there and started in 1968. Practically this propaganda work began vigorously from 1968. So from 1968, 69, 70, and this, 71. So 3-4 years, all these branches have grown up, and now practically throughout the whole continent, Europe and America, they know what is Hare Krishna, Maha Mantra. Really, to our propaganda. Just like these boys, they have seen, they are chanting and dancing. We send street Sankirtan, even the most busiest quarter of New York, Fifth Avenue, and they go. This is a speech, so it may not be perfect grammatically speaking, but this is what he said. This is word for word, it was transcribed. The American boys, they are very daring. Sometimes police arrest them, and now police is not harassing. The public and police, both they are now sympathetic that, open quote, here is a movement which is actually genuine and very beneficial to our people, close quote. They are sympathetic. And even some of the Christian priests, they are also sympathetic. They say that, open quote, these boys, American boys, are our boys. They are so nice that they're mad after God, but we should not give them. Swamiji has given them, close quote. So they appreciate. Actually, these boys, they come from Christian family, Jewish family. There are many churches in America. I was surprised. When I first went to Butler, that's a small county, but I saw there about a dozen of churches. So I thought the American people, they are very religious minded, and actually so. The history of the American people, mostly they came from England for this religious purpose. So they migrated to America for being religiously advanced. So American people, I very much appreciate them. They are religious, and they have got very good potency for understanding God consciousness. And interestingly enough, he is speaking to an Indian audience here in Gorakhpur, which is in UP. This is my opinion, and I do not know why I was inclined to go to America. It was also Krishna's desire, because I thought that, open quote, if this movement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, close quote, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that, Pritivite ache yata nagaradi gram, sarvatma prachor haibe more nam. That's from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Antya Leela 4.126. In every town and village of this world, the chanting of my name will be heard. That is his prediction, that, open quote, as many towns and villages are there on the surface of the globe, everywhere this message of Hare Krishna mantra and Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya's name will be there, close quote. So I thought, open quote, I should go to America. If the American people take it seriously, then other people will like it, close quote. So actually that is happening. These boys are so enthusiastic in preaching that on my word, they are going to any part of the world. Any part of the world. They are prepared to go to any part of the world. And just now I received one letter from my disciple, Sriman Upendra Das. He does not know Hindi. And in the Fiji island, there are many Indians. But still, he is making propaganda. He's an American, Upendra. He's simply chanting Hare Krishna mantra door to door. They are also husband and wife. The people are very much appreciating. So my Guru Raj's desire that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prediction is now being fulfilled. At least it has begun to be fulfilled. So it is a genuine movement, authorized movement, and India's original culture. So our appeal to the Indian people that you should take seriously about this movement and try to cooperate with us, close quote. That will be glorification for Indian culture. At the present moment, India is known as very poor, poverty-stricken country. People are under impression that, open quote, they are beggars. They have got nothing to give. They are under impression that they are beggars, simply here to beg. Close quote. Actually, our ministers go there, and for some begging purpose. Open quote. Give us rice, give us wheat, give us money, give us soldiers. That is their business. But this movement, for the first time, India is giving something to them. And it is not begging propaganda. It is giving propaganda. Because they are hankering after this substance, Krishna consciousness. They have enjoyed enough of this material consciousness. The material consciousness means to enjoy sex life and drink and have sufficient money. These three items, they have got sufficient, immense. There are so far material comforts, oh, there is no conception in India they are materially comfortable. Their roads, their cars, their machines, you cannot imagine how American roads are there. There are freeways. In America, there are freeways. Without any stoppage, you can run your car at 70-mile speed, and 4 cars going up and 4 cars going down, and road just like velvet. You see? Laughter, chuckles, laughs. Our roads, so there's no comparison of their materially advancement. So I always, when I run in some freeways, these boys run our cars. And you'll be very pleased that in each and every temple we have got at least 4 cars. Nice. Especially 1 car for me and 2 cars for carrying them for Sankirtan movement. Very good arrangement. That's better than any temple in India. If you go sometimes, I request you to go, but one condition, that you have to become life member. Laughter. But if you go, you will be very much pleased in the temples. And then he goes on. So now I'm going to read a little bit of the initial document that was lodged in New York to incorporate the movement. Certificate of Incorporation of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, pursuant to the Religious Corporations Law of the State of New York. We, the undersigned, for the purpose of forming a corporation, pursuant to the Religious Corporation Law of the State of New York, do hereby make, subscribe, and acknowledge this certificate as follows. First, the name of the corporation shall be International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Second, the purposes for which the corporation is organized are: A, to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. B, to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as it is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. C, to bring the members of the society with each other and near to Krishna, the prime entity, and thus to develop the idea within the members and humanity at large that each soul is part and parcel of the quality of Godhead, Krishna. D, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy name of God as revealed in the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. E, to erect for the members, for the society at large, a holy place of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Krishna. And he elaborates a bit, and I'll continue reading. The corporation shall have this power, either directly or indirectly, either alone or in conjunction or cooperation with others, to do any and all lawful acts and things, to engage in any and all lawful activities which may be necessary, useful, suitable, desirable, or proper for the furtherance, accomplishment, fostering, or attainment of any or all of the purposes of which this corporation is organized, and to aid or assist other organizations whose activities are such as to further accomplish, foster, or attain any of such purposes, notwithstanding anything, or attain, notwithstanding anything, herein to the contrary, the corporation shall exercise only such powers as are in furtherance of the exempt purposes of the organization set forth in section 501, open paren, C, close paren, of the Internal Revenue Code and its registration regulations, as the same now exist or as they may be hereafter amended from time to time. The corporation is not organized for profit, and no part of this net earning of the corporation shall inure to the benefit of any private shareholder or individual. This is Prabhupada's understanding of I mean, he wrote all this because he had a very legalistic understanding of what a corporation was and how it should act. And so there's a lot of legalese type of jargon, but he wrote it himself. The corporation is not regulated, is not organized for profit, and no part of this net earnings of the corporation shall inure to the benefit of any private shareholder or individual. In the event of the liquidation or dissolution of the corporation, whether voluntary or involuntary, no member shall be entitled to any distribution or division of its remaining property or its proceeds and the balance of all money and other property received by the corporation, etc. So in this paper contains, I had done a bit of research and printed it out, what the initial corporation consisted of. And these are the initial signers. Michael Grant, 110, and it gives the address, 110 Bowery, New York, New York. Jan Oslin, 110 Bowery, New York, New York. James S. Green, 324 East 6th Street, New York. The names and addresses of the trustees until the second annual meeting of the corporation are as follows, and they have the other people's names. Paul Gardner, who is the rental agent, 38 East 76th Street, New York, New York. Donald Chapdelaine, I have no idea who that is, 26 2nd Avenue, one of the devotees, New York, New York. And Raymond Marias, that's Raya Rama, 26 2nd Avenue, New York, New York. Donald Chapdelaine must have been one of the early devotees. The names and addresses of the trustees until the third annual meeting of the corporation are as follows. Name, Carl Jurgens. That was initiated devotee named Karlapati, 218 Center Street, New York, New York. Raphael Balsam, 26 2nd Avenue. I don't know who that was. 26 2nd Avenue. Robert Lefkowitz, that's Rabindranath Swarup, 1847 49th Street, Brooklyn, New York. So, and then it goes on and on with a lot of legal jargon. And then Prabhupada signed this and had a couple of signatures of the initial devotees, including Carol Baker, who was the live-in partner of Karlapati, and Raymond Marias, who was Raphael Balsam. So if anyone would like to have this, I will distribute it free of charge. And it's signed by Stephen Goldsmith, Notary Public, State of New York. He was the lawyer. With his number of on the 13th day of July, 1966, before me personally came A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Raymond Marias, and Carol Beckar, to me known and known to me to be the individuals described in and who assembled the foregoing certificate of the incorporation. And they severally acknowledged to me that they severally executed this same. And then it's signed by Stephen Goldsmith. And that is the entire certificate of incorporation. Not the entire thing, but a good part of the certificate of incorporation. So if anyone would like these, I've printed them out and I have them in my computer. Okay. One other thing that Prabhupada, this is not related exactly to the incorporation of ISKCON, but it's just a little incident that took place. What were you pointing to?
I think somebody was waiting for that.
Oh, well, it's too late now. Never too late. Anyway, I don't know. There's different versions of what took place, but it was one of the things that I had taped with Vishnu John the other day, and there were some very large, 1.5 meter tall white marble deities that a man was going to donate to ISKCON and in ISKCON in London. And at that time there were no large deities. I mean, this is a very large deity, 1.5 meters tall, 1.1. They were very large, about this size, but there weren't any. And they were admitted to the cover of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the first volume, first canto. And I remember Prabhupada he sort of kidnapped them because I don't know if they were planning to give them to us or not, but there's a tradition that if there's damage to a deity, that deity cannot be installed. A tradition in India that if there's even a slight bit of damage, that deity cannot be installed in a temple. And so this conversation was going on about the deity. I learned all this later on because the conversation was going on in Hindi. It was a very rapid conversation, very difficult to understand. And then he said, all of a sudden, he turned to the devotees and he said in English, "We have a man." And he gestured to Jamuna. And I kind of didn't understand how he could say, "We have a man," because he's gesturing to a woman. But and then he resumed the conversation in Hindi. He was back to the proposed donors, and all of a sudden the conversation turned jovial. It was a very serious, stern conversation, but it was almost as if he had told a joke or something. And then he turned to the devotees and he said, there was myself, Tamal Krishna, Jamuna, and Radharaman. He said, "Tamal Krishna, just see how heavy Krishna is." And the deities were right in that room. They had a white sheet over them. We couldn't see what they looked like, but a few people kind of looked underneath the sheeting and saw that it was a real deity, and said, "Well, just take him out to the van." And then he quickly resumed the conversation in the Hindi language with these people. And there was the head of one of the Hindu centers and his wife and another member of the administration, and they sort of lost sight of the fact that the deities were being taken away. And Prabhupada was kind of kidnapping you might say. And then he did the same thing with Radharani, who had a very small bit of damage. I don't know, it was on her wrist or something, but Jamuna was designated to do the repair work before they were installed. And Prabhupada thought, well, we'll install them anyway. Traditions or no traditions. We're just, this is urgent. So then as we were driving away with the two deities in the van, the van said Hare Krishna on it, and I was there along with Tamal Krishna and Jamuna and Radharaman and maybe a couple others. Prabhupada said, and I foiled the bank manager's scheme. Later on, I didn't know what I thought was his scheme, but I think that Prabhupada was asking for a loan. And at first, they were just saying no, they weren't going to give it to him. And then at the end of the conversation, the bank manager changed his mind and he said, okay. And he signed off on him and he let him have the loan. And Prabhupada was chuckling to himself. He said, and I foiled the bank manager's scheme. And the bank manager said to me, Mr. Day, you should have been a politician. And I learned all this later, what was going on, but that's what he said. Anyway, that's all. Any comments or questions about any of this? Yes?
You said that Prabhupada prepared the document.
Prabhupada what?
Stephen, Prabhupada prepared that document, the Incorporation.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Stephen Goldsmith was just leaning legalistic.
Well, he probably did a bit of editing and tweaking to make it exactly correct legally, but Prabhupada did most of the work. Stephen Goldsmith he was the lawyer at that time of ISKCON. And at one point, but he used to go to the temple and he heard Prabhupada lecture. And at one point, he said, if your movement is so wonderful, why is the government sending so many of your young people to Vietnam to be killed? And Prabhupada didn't answer immediately, but he just paused for a few moments and then he said, Krishna is, because you are killing so many animals, Krishna is sending, and he gestured like this, send your sons to the slaughterhouse. And that was the end of that conversation, and that was the answer.
At the time when you were asked to sign the document, wasn't it Stephen Goldsmith stood up in the meeting and announced?
I don't know where he was at that time, but I didn't hear from him directly. But someone else that was nearby said that you should sign this paper because this is what Swamiji wants. So I signed it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was signing. I just thought, well, he's trying to make it all legal. I didn't have any idea how it could grow into a big worldwide corporation. I don't think anybody, except Prabhupada, of course, knew. Maybe some people thought that too. Yes?
The 7 purposes of ISKCON are described in that document. And you were also saying that there's some discussion that there's more Could it have been the articles of incorporation, the other aspects of a legal thing that were...
It's possible, but it didn't happen right then. And in the Lilamrita, which is the authorized biography of Prabhupada, it just talks about the eight principles. But you know, those were the founding, you might say, documents of what the corporation was. It was based on those 8 principles. And maybe others were added later on, I don't know, but there was a provision for adding.
Wasn't there another time, Maharaj, where Prabhupada was sitting on a bench out in the open, and there was a transit authority man or something like that who asked him was he okay, because he didn't really have very substantial winter gear. And Prabhupada said, yes, I'm fine. And then he said to the man, actually, we have many centres, many disciples, and just maybe we are separated by time.
Well, I've heard that before, but it's not written down anywhere, so I don't know if it's true or if it's just some fanciful idea. But Prabhupada did have some vision of it being bigger than just a storefront in Lower Manhattan.
Ramesh, can you tell a little bit about the proposal of naming Society of International Society for God's Consciousness?
What about it?
There was a proposal to name it Society for God Consciousness, not for Krishna Consciousness.
Yeah. But Prabhupada would insist that it be Krishna consciousness. He didn't like the idea it would be God consciousness. The idea was that more people would join the society that was for God consciousness. But since they didn't know what Krishna was, that they might hold back. But Prabhupada insisted that it have the name Krishna in it. And that's what happened. And now many people know what Krishna is, or who Krishna is. Yes?
Wasn't there a comment at the time Prabhupada made that God is too vague, that Krishna is more specific, the term God consciousness?
Well, I don't know about that. He may have said such a thing, but according to what he said later on in many teachings, lectures, walks, and conversations, there's a concept of God in every religious tradition, but it's not complete. Whereas we can tell where God was born, how old he was when he died, and lots of things that aren't available to find out. Most people just think of God as an elderly man with a beard in a cloud up in the sky somewhere, and they don't have any other thoughts, any other knowledge. So he compared to the Vedic literature like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam as the unabridged version, and the other concepts of God to be the pocket dictionaries or called the collegiate dictionaries. They're not. It's not the complete understanding of who God is. So Prabhupada once said that this is the science of God. That's a very interesting phrase, the science of God. Yes?
It would have been a very interesting time to have witnessed all that. Hare Krishna movement, the hippie movement, Vietnam War, conscription. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Well, it was kind of interesting because the hippie movement really started in California, in San Francisco. That was the mecca of the so-called dropouts and alternatives. But New York was kind of following in their footsteps, and many of the alternatives of New York kind of gravitated to the 26th 2nd Avenue because they were searching for something else, something beyond what they were taught and what their parents and grandparents were doing. And there were many people that were against the war in Vietnam that was going on at the time. So there was a lot of antithetical thought about the American way of life at that time. So it was a kind of an interesting. And some sociologists have said that if Krishna consciousness had surfaced at another time, a later time, it wouldn't have taken root so quickly. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they say. Some people say. Yes?
You made the comment, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, in the storefront, that sign. Is it the fact that America is so open and you can just, everything is possible to do in America compared to other parts?
In a sense, Prabhupada liked America because there were, as I was reading, there were a lot of churches and there's a lot of concepts of God. In a sense, they had a certain open-mindedness, in a sense. But he also condemned them for being very materialistic. Like trying to shoot the presidents, that sort of stuff goes on. Yes?
That story when Prabhupada kidnapped the deities, was there a part of the story where you were driving away and then Prabhupada stopped the car to pay respects to the deities?
Well, my recollection is that Prabhupada wasn't driving and the car didn't stop, but when he made that comment that he said Mr. Day should have been a politician when he was quoting that bank manager, as I remember it, the car wasn't stopped. He was kind of saying it in a way to all the people in the van, but he was mostly saying it to himself. And he was kind of chuckling under his breath that he had outsmarted the donors who maybe weren't going to give it to us because they wanted to do the repair themselves. But maybe they were actually not going to donate them at the time. It's possible. I don't know what they were thinking. But there's a lot of different versions about that too, about the whole kidnapping of the deities, and that's just I'm saying what I recall having been there, so it may not be exactly correct, but that's just my recollection. And as one ages, I'm 82 now, memories tend to cloud. I wasn't deft enough to write it in a diary at the moment. Okay, we'll stop there. Hare Krishna.